hello, I'm Kråkan, also known as Corvus Cornix, and welcome to Yacc, yet another Crowcast where I pick a game I played for a week and then I talk about it. This week's game is the Silver Surfer for the NES. It was released in 1990 and is a scrolling shooter. Developed by Software Creations and published by Arcadian Systems. And also there will be spoilers up ahead, just so you know, but first a little backstory. So last week I played Yacc for the podcast and my feed was flooded with the Marvel character of the Silver Surfer. Everything from Spotify to YouTube and so on. And I was like, what is going on? And apparently there's a movie in the works and I was hoping to ride that wave. So before I talk about the game, I need to explain something about the Silver Surfer. His real name is Radd. He's a herald of Galactus, which is this bad guy that consumes planets. And the story of the Silver Surfer is kind of a tragic one. It's like Christ or the fallen angel of Lucifer, if that makes sense. So he starts out as a bad guy searching planets for Galactus to consume, and then he starts to question things. So he's in the end like an alien, philosophical, observing surfer, and he's a really interesting character. However, this game, man, is something different, let me tell you. One of my friends, Pixel of the North, described it pretty well. It's a sweaty surfer game, and he's right about every aspect of that. And moving on to the game, at startup there is a kick-ass soundtrack and a cool splash screen with the Silver Surfer on it. So if you wait a bit, you get a high score and a couple of demos showing how the stages progresses. And then you get a cutscene where Galactus summons the Silver Surfer to do his bidding. So you're supposed to get parts for like a device, and that's the whole plot of the game. You're supposed to build him this device. So then you have a couple of options. It's like Mega Man basically. You can select different worlds. So there are 5 of them: Reptile, Firelord, Mephisto, Emperor, and the Possessor. So I went with the Reptile stage first. So if you hit anything in this game, you will die, and you will get treated to a title card where the Silver Surfer is on his board holding his head in shame. So the enemies in this stage are red goofy fishes, green lizards on turrets, and also jumping and moving around. And you can pick up power-ups in this game as well. You can pick up extra firepower. I recommend you use a turbo controller, by the way, because otherwise you'll wear out your thumb. So if you pick up one of these balls, they're literally just silver balls, and they provide extra firepower. And if you press the B button, they will change directions. So you can shoot backwards and downwards and to the sides and stuff like that. You can also pick up bombs. They are defined by the letter B, and they basically like a screen nuke. Take out everything on the screen. You can have maximum 3 of those. You can also pick up the letter F. I don't know what they do. I guess it's firepower. At the beginning of the level, there's also this rubber duck that you can shoot, and it wobbles. And at the end of the level, there are these frogs on poles that stick out their tongues. And I don't know, the enemies in this game are all over the place. And the boss of this stage is a wave of enemies. And if you die, and you will definitely do that over and over again, you have the option to continue or quit. And that's nice that they at least put that in there. And now it's time for Selection 2. So the way that this game works is that every world has Selection 1, 2, and 3. So Selection 2 in this case is a top view surfing, unlike the first level's side-scrolling one. So the enemies on this stage are orange flying things, turrets, and the projectiles from the turrets are really hard to see. Also I picked up an S, I think it's just for score, but here's a big complaint, by the way. If you get hit by anything, you die. It's like a knockout thing. You don't have a life bar or anything like that. Knocked out the board, you start with 4 lives. There are checkpoints, but this game is very rough. And the boss on this stage is a huge turtle, a real pushover for some reason compared to all the other stuff the game throws at you before this even happens. And now it's time for Selection 3. So this is a swamp area with enemies consisting of green pterodactyls, derpy red fishes, and the boss is a small green dino riding a big dinosaur. Kind of funny, but the sprite work was awesome. And once you beat that boss, you get a title card saying congratulations, you got a device part. And I was like, cool, did I do all that for just one piece of this thing? But then you get a cool animation, as compensation, I guess. I know I could have stopped here just because, for my sanity's sake, but I kept on going and I actually beat this game this week. And I've used save states, but I'm not ashamed to admit that. And then I started the Firelord stages. So it's a top view, like a canyon situation, and the ground is supposed to be lava, but it actually looks like brown sewage. So I figured out that this stage, if you shoot something against something you can't pass through, the bullets will stop at that. So it's actually just useful to fire all the time, because then you see what you can pass and cannot. So the enemies in this stage are green crawling insects, green skulls, and white hands that tries to grab you from the brown lava. And then it's time for selection 2. So this is a cave level and a side scroller at that. So the enemies here are volcanoes, fire dripping from the ceiling, weird green things, I think they are goblins, pumpkins, orange pterodactyls, and skulls dripping lava. And the part coming up is a real mess. There is this skull that keeps crying. I guess he doesn't like being in this game, but the only way you can pass him is to use a bomb with the correct timing, and it's pure bullshit. And then you move through a flying stage with houses, a house section. It's really weird. And the boss here on this stage is flying pumpkins in fast patterns. And then it's time for section 3, a temple area. So the enemies here are ox heads or demon heads that spit or drip spit, I don't know anymore. And then there are brown moving bananas, and the boss here is a guy just standing taking hits while surrounded by fire bats. And then you get another piece of the device and you move on. And now it's time for the world possession or procession, something like that. You go through space, and the enemies here are green and blue spinning things. And you go through like a trophy hall, like a trophy room, and there are more enemies, barrels spitting out green skulls and turrets and even space fish. And the boss here is just a lot of enemies. And now it's time for selection 2, so it's a top view scrolling through a maze-like structure. The enemies here are rolling eyes, white creepy dudes, and I don't think there was a boss on this one. And now it's time for selection 3, so it's a side scroller once again through some ruins, and the sprite work here is actually really good. And the enemies here are green flying things and white ghosts, and the boss is some guy standing behind a barricade or like a barrier. So it's time for the next world, Emperor, so it's a top view scroller once again. A lot of projectiles and turrets and tanks and white balls. Time for selection 2, a mechanical structure, a side scroller once again. Green flying objects, tank robots and turrets, and the boss here is just a robot tank and air units. And now it's time for selection 3, a blue corridor with a black background. The boss here is the Emperor and turrets. And now it's time for the Mephisto world. It's a green castle dungeon. The enemies here are ghosts flying out of doors, and they just go for you. And then there are blue bats, or at least I think they're blue bats, and blue springs, and orange gargoyles. And the boss here is a ghost with blue things. It's just ridiculous. And then it's time for selection 2, so it's a top view scroller. The enemies here are cannons, skulls, green bats, white donuts, green hands throwing balls, and later purple hands throwing balls. And then it's time for selection 3, it's a cave with vegetation, and the boss here is just a 3 with a face. And then you get a cutscene where Galactus tells the surfer to go get the last pieces of the device. You're supposed to go to the magic domain. It's like a space void with lots of skulls. And the enemies here are green clams, skull sperms, purple seahorses. And the boss on this stage is a green skull surrounded by white ones. And then it's time for selection 2. It's a top view scrolling in space, surrounded by walls of mouths. And it's really weird. The enemies here are white slow moving things, green things, bubbles, green and red, and later the train becomes spiky and some of the blocks turns into ice. And the boss here is a fast moving scorpion, and like the sprite art on this scorpion is really good. And now it's time for selection 3, the mushroom forest. So there are some enemies here, green larvae, purple thingies, later there are holes dripping, really disgusting looking, and later there are like skinned elephant heads also dripping. So the final boss of the game is a purple naked dude with a gun. Well, technically he's not naked, he has boots on, but he's a bullet sponge, let's just say that. You take him out and the device is complete, and Galactus says it's his now, but the Silver Surfer says it's too dangerous for anyone to like wield, and he takes it away for safekeeping, and that's the end of the game. It just says the end. Silver Surfer, you get your high score there, done that. So gameplay, go through the stages, beat the bosses, and get the parts that Galactus needs for his machine. Control, the D-pad moves the surfer around, the A button is fire, B circles through the orb's fire directions, select uses the screen nukes, maximum 3 of them, and that's about it. Graphics, so this game looks really good, and the box art in particular by Joe Yacc looks fantastic. It looks like a comic book cover, and it probably is. And I also like the title cards in the game, they look really well done, you know, like pure like pixel art right there. Sound and music. Tim Fallin and Geo Fallin made the sound for this game, and it's really driving and awesome. And I went so far to actually get this as a ringtone for my phone and also my wake-up call. That's how amazing the music is. Easter eggs, secrets, and glitches. I watched a tool-assisted speedrun of this game because I don't believe any human has ever beaten this game without cheating or using save states. But it's really weird also how the bot actually played the game. It doesn't fire a single projectile throughout the run, and I'm like, how do you even I'm not even gonna ask, So in conclusion, I wrote, yes, try it, but it's super hard. So the only way I could beat this game was to abuse save states, and I'm not ashamed to admit that, as I said before. So this week I was also pressed for time, but I managed to squeeze in this game. So I'm going to DreamHack Summer, and it's gonna be fun. But that's why I stressed out this episode. So this game is super fun when you're fully powered up, but the problem is when you get hit, you lose all your power-ups and everything. That's the main problem. The graphics and sound are just fantastic, in my opinion. So I don't think I can recommend this for a casual gamer, and the game is a little bit too long for its own good. Some of the levels just stretches on and you just want them to end because it's literally a bullet hell sometimes. It's hard to see the projectiles and so on and so forth. So what I can recommend you do if you don't want to play the game or, get tortured, I guess, just go on YouTube and listen to the soundtrack because it's amazing. Just do that. So anyway, thanks for listening and or watching, and take care.